Hey everybody, it's Canadian Spinja, and I'm back with another episode of Surviving with Spinja. Today, my guest is Castaldo. This guy, oh my God. I've got to say, I first saw him on Typical Skeptic. Shout out to Rob Khalil. He's at the Full Disclosure Now conference, and just want to say hey to everybody there. But anyway, he's like this guy blows my mind. Like his knowledge and his lineage is just amazing. But we're gonna try to compress things because sorry, I'm really excited. And we were chatting like right before the show, and he was just dropping gold. And so we're just gonna dive right in. Like, thank you so much for being here. You truly are like you're a gift to this community. You're a gift to this reality. And again, just thank
Well,
you.
thank you. That's the kindest words you could say. Incredible. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
And I invited you here because you have really impacted both Don and I. Like like after we've seen you on Rob's show, like you've given us topics to talk about. And
No
so I
doubt.
just feel I need to share you with my viewers and listeners if they're not acquainted with you and your work. And I'm just going to tell you that there are some people that are just going to be listening to audio only. So
Oh,
if there's anything, like if there's anything that you want to show, absolutely feel free, and we'll just make sure that they know the YouTube link, and so that they can see it visually, and we'll also
oh, cool.
have
Yeah, for
your
sure.
website and everything. So
Yeah.
so take it away, Rod. Just let her rip.
Well, I think we should start where we were chatting before because I could see you were getting goosebumps and like it
Oh,
was everything, like yeah. Well, you had asked me like any advice I have for someone that's just first starting out or and like certain things that you go through and I explained some of the process that I feel and that it sort of is the process of what most people go through because when especially maybe some European and different cultures all over the planet they grow up a little bit different and they might have a different belief system so it might be easier for them to experience certain energies that are unseen maybe to in this spectrum of light. Some people don't feel the energies of crystals, say, or certain metals or the magnetism and the electricity of certain things. People don't even feel the energy or the danger around Wi-Fi and things like that as well. So people pretty much are numb to a lot of the energies that are around them all at all times that influence our bodies, our everything, our mind, everything. So usually it's because of our programmings and the different belief systems that we have throughout our life, different avenues that we go down through our life. We'll put up walls around our bodies, our physical bodies and how we experience things. And it's like a literal wall around our energetic layers and our physical bodies. And these walls are developed by religion, programming, dogmas, you know, different uh, different insecurities you pick up about yourself. I mean, there's so many different things that go along. It could be just different things that you stuff and suppress over time. Just different things. They start to build walls in front of how you experience this reality and how you feel things, especially things that are beneficial for you to deal with those things that you're suppressing, right? So a lot of people they won't experience the energy of a crystal. A crystal is literally a living thing. It grows, right? It's made out of like an organized freaking crystalline structure, right? And it grows similar to like our bodies. We're like liquid crystals, right? We're literally like, and the way our skin forms, it's similar to the hexagonal pyramid of quartz, right? And it's piezoelectric quartz, tourmaline. I mean, shit. Even Rousseau salt is piezoelectric. So you could send like impulses that carry the current information travels through that, right? So like most people don't experience the magic or the feeling of crystals, you know, right? It's real, it's spiritual, it's scientific, it's all of that, right? There's people got to realize too. Nowadays, we have separated everything. Everything is separate. Even if you go to the freaking doctor, they're going to tell you all your different body parts are separate than the other. They treat them all different. Like it's not one big whole or organism, right? That's like everything is treated. So like spirituality and sciences are kept at complete opposite ends of the spectrum when they're supposed to be fused together. There's not one without the other. There's no spiritual without the science. It's all together. That's why um, mythology was developed, because all of a sudden there was these advanced, elaborate sciences that were being explained eloquently, and the spiritual significance behind them that people no longer understood. They were, you know, because there was knowledge lost on the planet. So all of a sudden they're interpreting it as like these stories, and they're giving these earthly things, and it becomes mythology. And then it starts getting degraded over time, and then later on it becomes your local nursery rhyme, even, you know, like, so
Oh my
things things like
God.
that get misunderstood over time. And it's like that with spirituality and science. In the ancient past, when you were an adept or a spiritual initiate, if you want to say, right, you were a freaking warrior and a shaman, right? You were a doctor and a friggin' medicine man as well, a scientist and a warrior, right? You were an astrologer, an astronomer, a scientist, and all of this in one, and that made you an adept, right? And they knew the spiritual significance behind the sciences, right? But there was advanced, you know, cultures, but we've had cataclysms, we've had all sorts of things on this planet where things have been erased, and most of it has to do with the sun going through different changes, the magnetic poles flipping on the planet, where things become weak, and cosmic radiation comes in and eliminates species like dinosaurs and things like that, right? And the sun goes through these cycles, and the Vedics has been talking about this. But usually we can't experience these energies behind crystals because we're programmed with religion and things like that. So our ego prevents us from feeling or seeing these energies, right? So then you either go through like some traumatic experience that just humbles you down to the core, right? Where you're just freaking humbled, and then the next day you looking at things differently, or you can go through a psychedelic experience where it skyrockets you past your ego and your belief system, where the next day you're experiencing things differently. And then your dumbass walks to the mall, to your local crystal shop a week later, and you walk in and you'll see a quartz crystal, and before you thought it was just a shiny mineral that looked cool on the table that you were into. You know, you had an interest in it, but you didn't really truly know in it, or you just were totally like, oh, that's bullcrap, right? Whatever it was, now you walk in and you see a quartz crystal or some sort of crystal, and you'll now experience the energies with it and in a whole new way. And it's not that it was all of a sudden it's magic, it's that it was always there. It's that your programming and your belief system has been preventing it. And usually it's things that you're stuffing down. So usually when you start going through these changes, right? These you start absorbing the light around you in different ways, right? So it's going to soak through your energetic layers all the way to your physical body, and it digs its way like a spiritual serpent right to the base of your spine, and it travels up the freaking backbone of Osiris, right? It travels up the Jacob's ladder. It travels up all the way through your spine, and it hits the back of your freaking brainstem and floods your mind with past memories that you were suppressing, things that were traumatic from you, you know, all this stuff that you've been suppressing your whole life, different things that have you gone through. And that even makes sometimes more of a wall get put up around it, because you're like, am I going crazy? Am I imagining this thing? All of a sudden now I'm remembering in a dream. I had a dream that I had this weird, like off-key, like halfway sexual encounter with my cousin 20 years ago or something, right? Like something, and then you'll wake up and like, wait, am I imagining? Am I going crazy? Or something, like these things just start emerging that you didn't want to deal with at the time. So you suppressed it, and it ended up building a wall around your spirit, literally like someone like put like mud around you and it hardened and fossilized and you got like this soul coat, like a soul fucking winter jacket on you, right? Like a soul coat, and you got to chisel through it, and hammer through it and break through it. And then
Oh,
finally, the true layer of your being starts to emerge. And then you're comfortable with yourself sexually. You're comfortable with yourself in different ways that you haven't been since you were a child. And then you
oh
don't give an
my,
F in a whole different way. You thought you didn't give an F before? No, you were just not giving an F because you were putting walls around you. Now you give an F and you'll talk about everything that ever's bothered you and this and that. And all of a sudden you'll flood it all out. And then you'll start going through stages. First, you want to talk about it and get it all out. And then you don't give a shit any. Like, there's all these different stages. The real you starts to emerge, right? And through the process, right, it's hard to keep your mouth shut, but it's probably good to keep your mouth shut a lot of the time, right? That's why I had to have a podcast and I had to have a radio show for a while, because you can't talk about it to normal people in your family because you look like a lunatic, right? You can't, and you wanna, and then the more you start accumulating knowledge about things, you'll start trying maybe even to tell people at the grocery store or things like that, but you can't, because you can't change others. They're at different stage of
no.
their development through you, and some people never go through it. You'll never be able to get, because there's 80, sometimes 80 or more years of those layers just caked on, and in whatever generation you grow up in, there's a specific programming that seems to come with every generation too, depending on the media, depending on the vibe of the vibration of the selective consciousness at the time, right? We absorb that, and we don't realize that the sun and the stars, they're in communion with all sentient life. So the vibration that's literally coming out of the collective consciousness of humanity and is being that's emanating out of us like light, right? It's a vibration, it's a frequency, it's an intention, right? The materialistic vibe we all have. So that's being absorbed by the sun, by the stars. And then they alter that vibration by their own specific vibration and personality and trait. And then they emanate it back outward and we absorb it. So we're literally being evolved by the sun according to our own vibration and what signal we're sending out. So when we have a materialistic, greedy, very ego vibe coming out of the planet, we're being evolved according to that, right? So all we have to do is change the collective consciousness of who we are, and then gradually the waters on the planet will start to change. Everything would start to change like a freaking DMT tidal wave over the planet, literally,
Oh,
and that's all we have to do is change our
oh
own
my God.
individual vibrations. And it's so hard because like we're being impulsed with all this technology to prevent that. We're literally
Yes.
in a war,
Yes.
an unseen
Yeah.
frequency astral war, right? And when we go to sleep at night, some of us literally drift off into that war, and we're going to battle for our DNA, for who we are being evolved into, right? And some of us can sense it on a higher level, and we even have agreed to step up at night and do this in certain times of the year. We've had whole family lines devoted to this. And that's where some of my bloodline in the past has gone through. I was shown this. And in ancient Italy, we're called the Benedante. And people that are born inside the call that I was, some people experience this, and I thought I was crazy throughout my whole life, for a long time. And then I literally was told by certain people through Italian mysticism that I came up through it, that, oh no, no, you're of the blood seed, you're of the fata, you're not crazy. But because of my own family vibe at the time and my parents, I didn't really get to experience it. It was like my great grandparents that were the last ones that were experiencing that, right? And my great grandfather was a master blacksmith, but when he came over from Italy, he ended up going to prison for killing somebody for the mafia. His name was, I'm named after him, Raffaele Antonio Castaldo. You can actually look it up in Italy, in Westchester County, New York. My last name. It was in the 1920s, and he was a master blacksmith. And when he came over from Italy, some guy had a gambling debt. He ended up killing the guy over a gambling debt or something. And so like a lot of stuff stopped with that line. with him,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
when it came over from Italy. So, and things got suppressed. My family became heavily Catholic in that bloodline at that time, right? And my mom's side is also was a very spiritual side. I mean,
Mhm.
she comes from the lines of the Biancos, which that means like of the light, of the white light. That's the last name in Italian. My great grandmother's name was Santa Bianco, which means Saint Light, right? And uh and she married actually somebody with the last name Di Mauro. That was my mother's maiden name, Mauro, which means of the Moors. Now the Moors were a dark tribe from Sicily that invaded
Mm.
Sicily, right? So my family from Italy has both the light and the dark, like clashed in
Wow.
there, right? And it's literally my great grandmother's name was Saint White, Santa Bianco, and she married someone with the last name of the dark. Like, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So light
Wow.
in the dark. It's very weird. Yeah. Dimoro means of the dark or of the Moors. So they were an African tribe that invaded Sicily at a time. So maybe at one time my family line was either owned by the Moors or something like that. They were just or
Yeah.
sometimes people that had dark skin in Italy were said they were of the Moors or of the because they were like the black. They were of the dark. So I truly don't know whether, but when I haven't got a DNA test, but I've had siblings that have had those like 23s and me's, and
Hmm. Hmm.
like 90% of my DNA, my sister's DNA is from northern Italy all the way to Sicily. And then we have like over 6% North African.
Oh,
And then we have like some Coptic Egyptian and some other stuff in there. So like it was like 2% Coptic Egyptian and some other stuff in there. But
wow.
yeah, like there was like
Wow.
some like 0.00 something percent Middle Eastern or something. Like there was like little things in there, but majority of it was from northern Italy all the way to Sicily, and then 6% was North African, and some of it was Coptic Egyptian, which is not far, for that's African as well. So I mean, it's in Africa. But yeah, I mean, they call certain bloodlines that have the mystical hereditary families like the Strega or the Mago or Maga, Streghe in Italy, or and then you have the Benedante and the Malandante side. You have people that are basically trying to help and cleanse the collective consciousness of humanity, and you have people that are
Yeah.
trying to poach from it you know.
Yeah.
So the Malandante is the dark people that are literally poaching from the collective consciousness to absorb more powers and energies like that, right? And then you have the other side, which is trying to prevent this and cleanse the collective consciousness of their communities and the local areas. So at night, when people go to sleep, the astral so-called witches, the strega, right? That word in Italy, strega, it comes from the Latin strix or stregone, which means
Yeah.
screech owl, right? It means screech owl. That's really the origins, because at night the witches, they move in silence, right? While people are dreaming, just like the owl moves in silence with his wings to snatch his prey out of the tree, right? While they're sleeping. So the witch at night travels in silence and either goes into battle or snatches their prey while they're sleeping, right? So they got that word, the strix or the strega, from the screech owl, right? So that's where it actually originated. So there's bad connotations with it, of course, with everything, but it doesn't, like, even with Christianity. I mean, how many people been I've had ancestors killed in the name of God by Christianity because they said that there were a multiplicity of suns in the universe, and that there was life on these planets around these suns, and life on them, right? Giordano Bruno is part of my line. And I'm actually, you can see up here, I'm technically a reverend. I don't use the top, but Our Lady and Lord of the Trinacrian Rose is part of my bloodline. And in 2019, I was given the award, but it's for a lifetime of spiritual work and Reiki work, and like a master Reiki healer and all that, right? So Leo Martello was a well-known author in the 60s that was part of our bloodline as well. And all the way goes back to Giordano Bruno, who was killed in Italy in the year 1600 because he said that there were multiplicity of suns in the universe. And he basically predicted what science figured out later on, right? But he was also a hermeticist. He was into hermetic healing. He was into esoteric, stuff, and all. He was just an adept, right? And basically, during the Inquisition, there were very few really powerful mystics or witches or shaman or however you want to label these people that were killed. They killed the low-level peasant ones that were doing, the Malok, the evil eye, and little low-level peasant ones. The ones that had advanced knowledge went to work for the church, right? They were either coerced to work for the church or they were imprisoned until they either died or gave up information, right? So they did not kill really knowledgeable people. There was no gain in it, right? They went for knowledge, and people like Saint Patrick from the past, people like they were adepts, spiritual initiates that got coerced to go work for the church, right? Saint Benedict, all these people that became saints, they were true adepts and mystics and strega bloodlines, part of the except Saint Patrick, he wasn't Italian, he came from the Druids. Right, he came from the Druids, and if you look into the past in St. Patrick's, he was resurrecting giant men from the dead. Look into the some of the so-called miracles that are attributed to St. Patrick, resurrecting 7-foot men from the dead, and things like this. So it's incredible.
Wow.
Yeah, and then when he chased the so-called snakes out of Ireland, which means the druid, the snake priests. He chased the snakes and he used their own weapons against them, right? He literally has this showdown that's biblical style, where he goes to this druid priest and he elevates the druid priest off the ground, levitates him, and slams him down and kills him, right? And this is this is in the Catholic Church. We got cathedrals after this guy, right? And
Wow.
yeah, right? And people don't even realize he was a heretic at one time, considered to the church, and then he went to go work for him. Same with Saint Bernard, all those guys. And so the church, right? They imprisoned my ancestor Giordano Bruno for over 8 years in a dungeon, and every year they brought him out in front of the crowd and tried to humiliate him and say, say you were delusional and that we're right, and come and we'll let you go, right? But he wouldn't. He just stand his ground. And we're talking about, guys, he was only like a 5'2", 5'3" man, but he was like a giant in there. Like they were scared of him, right? And for 8 or 9 years, he was eating rats in a dungeon in beneath the Vatican, right? They had him in a dungeon eating rats, right? So
Wow.
finally, in the year 1600, they stripped him naked, tied him to a pole, and they were in front of the whole crowd. And they were like, "This is your last chance. Tell us now." And he's like, "You're more scared of me than I am of you." And he gave like this all incredible speech that was recorded, like his last words. And then they burned him alive, stripped him naked, and burned him alive because they weren't going to they realized the strength of this man, what he endured was incredible, and that he was not going to give up anything to them or ever work for them or ever say that they're saying the truth. There's nothing they could do. There's nothing they can do because his will was stronger. And that's what the special thing about humans are, is that when you have a belief and a will, there's nothing that can stop that but death. And even death, your soul may linger and stay and still hold up that belief and just linger and that planet's absorbed. The whole location that has your stamp on it will be absorbed with that feeling and will, right? That's the power of the spirit and the human being that we are. And we're about to lose that. We're about to lose that. I truly feel that there may be other species in the planet that look similar to grays, but there are one specific gray looking thing that comes from our
Yeah.
future that we transform into. And we're going very close to that. By the year 2400, we're going to be
Yeah.
looking at bacterias that are more robotic and different. Like we're going to have more different bacterias are going to evolve in different ways, and we're going to evolve in different ways. We might even be genderless and less births. And there might be where we look very similar to that gray. And maybe that's why these cattle mutilations and different things were happening, because we're coming from the future, taking samples of things,
Yeah.
or maybe trying to figure out where it all started to change and go wrong and the progression of it, and preserving some things from the past to maybe once again bring it back. So who knows? There's all these possibilities.
That actually lines up with Dawn's super soldier experiences. It like this is so wild, and like I like everything that you've said. Holy
And yeah,
shnikes.
and
Like
just for
it's
people
lining
and
up.
just sorry, not to cut you off, and just for people that are gonna watch this, to not to see
Yep,
to show you that quartz is piezoelectric, which means that it can carry electrical currents, but it also
yep,
when it happens when it's squeezed or compressed or rubbed together, right? So like you can just, if you don't believe me, you could take, these are just two pieces of natural quartz right here, right? I'll shut the light and I'll just, hopefully you can see it. There'll be sparks when you just rub it together. Can you see sparks?
I can't see it, but it might somebody might be able to see better because I'm just on a little phone. So
You could see the sparks coming out of it. I could see it. You can even smell it. There's little sparks. It's cold plasma
yeah.
light, you know. So
Oh, wow.
so when you have
So
when you have when you have most sacred sites, when they're obelisks or dolmens, they're made out of granite or red granite, right? Or even the bedrock of Gettysburg, right? The bedrock of Gettysburg is made out of black granite. So why is this important? Why would they make these ancient obelisks out of granite? Well, or dolmens out of granite. Well, granite has high quantities of both quartz crystal and magnetite. Magnetite is what, since magnetite is about magnetic fields. It points to the magnetic field. It vibrates like the magnetic. It creates magnetic fields around it, right? So when you have a lot of quartz crystal and granite, a lot of these obelisks or dolmens, they're put on spots where natural shocks and vibrations are generated, like above water streams or above fault lines. And as these natural shocks generate, the quartz within the granite starts to rub together and grind together, and then granite, and it emits and opens up the light, which the information that's absorbed within the stone comes out in that light. It's electrons and stuff, right? It's information. So it's science. So as soon as the core, like you have a granite obelisk that's literally like a point ray of light that's put right on top of a water stream or underground natural shocks and vibrations. As those natural shocks and vibrations generate, that quartz inside the granite rubs together and that ray of light beams to the top, right? And then it's put in a certain way in Egypt. So the flash of the horizon, the first flash of dawn that comes over the horizon, will light up the top of the obelisk like a pencil point, because they'll put what's called the lone stone, a magnetic meteorite stone, a betelos stone, and a capped in gold on top of the granite. So literally that light, the first light of dawn, boom, hits it like a laser beam, and it opens up the light within the stone. And it's like it opens up the information, right? It opens up the doorway, right? And it's very important. And it's like a surge of electrons at dawn that comes in the light, right? And a lot of times at granite sites, you'll see the orbs come around those sites as well, right? All the time, right? So at the spot that I bring my crystal, like this is this is my crystal skull tago. This is made out of Himalayan smoky quartz from North India Himalayas. And let me tell you, I have been working with Himalayan quartz for a few years very heavily, and all of a sudden a Himalayan seer emerges in my life. He's called
Oh, wow.
the Sun Yogi. I've had him on my show a few times. Uma Sankar, his name is. And he actually can feed off the sun, where they've put him in a scientific lab for 2 weeks, and he didn't eat, drink, he didn't go to the bathroom for like a couple of weeks, and he didn't lose weight or anything. Didn't change blood pressure, nothing. He just was he all he wanted to do was go at noon to feed off the sun for a few minutes. Yeah, it's a weapon. He actually says that it's not beneficial for him spiritually to do that. Like he doesn't progress spiritually doing that, but it's sort of like a weapon to
Yeah.
keep it under your hat in case you ever get stranded in the mountains or you ever like it's something to have for a seer. And he goes every year into the Himalayan mountains in the snow and stays up there for weeks, sometimes months. And he has asked me to speak at his Universal Peace Conference in September, the World Peace Conference. Yeah,
Whoa, that's
it's
awesome.
in India. So I don't know if I can attend it online or if I can go in person, but I'm definitely doing the online stream. It's in
Oh,
India.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, please keep us up to date about that. Like, like what's happening and stuff, because
Yeah,
that
for
is
sure.
awesome.
I don't know if you've seen him on my podcast, but I did radio actually. You just found out of me from the Typical Skeptic podcast, but
Yeah, yeah,
I've been out since like years. So like I did a radio show for like 10 years. First I was on the Para X radio network. It was called Spiral Radio, and then I went on Truth Frequency Radio until Truth Frequency
yeah,
Radio finished this year. I was on there from 2017 till this year on Truth Frequency Radio. And then before that I was on the Para X radio network. And I've been on like Richard Hoagland shows and a lot of different big shows out there over the years. But Leak Project a million times, all those different shows. But Darkness Radio. There's been a lot of different shows that I went on over the years that were pretty big shows. But I've been out, but I've kind of stayed in the shadows for on purpose. Like I said no to Coast
yeah,
AM years ago,
yeah.
and now I'd like to probably go back on, but I wasn't ready to go on that show years back, and I don't like how they control what you say, and it's
Okay.
like yeah, it's kind of like yeah, it's I don't know. I don't like
Yeah,
the some of the mainstream like they're gonna ask me
well,
some generic questions, and it's
yeah,
not, I don't know. I like someone that's actually interested. Like most people that go on Coast to AM, it's because they marketed themselves to go on there. They contacted Coast to Coast
yeah,
AM and said, "Here's my book.
yeah,
Here's my blah blah blah. Can I come on your show?" And eventually they found. I've never done that with anybody. Like if I figure if you're interested in me, then you're gonna have me on the show. I think I did it to one person because I was like, yo, somebody asked me to contact your show, so blah blah blah. It was this guy Tim something, I forget his name. But yeah, I mean it's just because like I figured if I'm not that kind of person that likes to market myself. It's hard for me to even sell my own products that I make. It's like
yeah.
it's hard to do that for me. It's just part of my it's like embedded in my traits in the stars, you know? It's just part of who
Oh,
I am. But
I
I'm
get
getting
it.
better at it.
Yeah,
So that's why I kind of had to do something that is beneficial for the mind, body, and soul for a living. Right? It had to be something that I had a passion that I would do anyway,
yeah,
So eventually when you start to go through these changes, you're going to realize that what you do for a living is very important. So like I had already changed, but I was still working jobs that I hated until like 2017, 2018, right before COVID, ironically. Like I couldn't ever get the unemployment for real. Like I never can like there's for some reason that I know I'm not supposed to get any assistance from the state ever. I'm not supposed to
yeah.
get food stamp. Even though I struggle and I'm broke most of the time, it's just something about me. Like I don't like to get assistance like that. Like something happened where like a couple of months before COVID hit, like where everybody was getting put on unemployment and their jobs were shutting
Yep.
down. Like my warehouse that I was working in at the time happened to them too. Like a few
Mm-hmm.
months before that even happened, I was sensing this. You guys can go on my YouTube. Check this out.
Yeah.
I was having these
Will do.
dreams.
Yeah.
And in 2018, I have videos on my YouTube that talk about plagues and the green comets. I was waking up in cold sweats in 2017 and 2018, and I was having these dreams and I was in cold sweats. I was seeing a green comet that was coming across the sky, and then I was seeing people on Earth in masks everywhere and fighting over food, fighting over things, blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh my God, plague's coming. And it might be triggered by some sort of green comet that's coming by. So then in 2000, like 6 months later, they talk about a green comet that was discovered. And then in December of 2019, there's plagues and masked fighting everywhere. Right. And
Yeah.
I could send you the video. I'll send you the link to the video.
Please,
And it was in
please
September.
do.
It,
Yeah.
the video was in September of 2018 when I first did that one.
Yeah.
And then I talked about it a few other times. It was like a full year before it happened. I was having like these, those dreams, like it's the only dreams that you tend to remember is those dreams that are so freaking vivid that they wake you up out of the dream,
Yeah.
right? It's so vivid. And then you wake up and you're like, oh my God, what I was experiencing was more real than this reality. Like, holy crap. Like it's like you don't even real, and then you retain some of it like a minute or so right before you wake up. It's hard to judge how long it is, but you return a little bit of what woke you up out of the dream, right? Those, I guess you could call those psychic dreams, or see, a lot of people, even the Aboriginals of Australia, they believe that dream time is the real time, and this reality is the Maya, the illusion, right? So there's something to that. There's definitely something to that. And yeah, people, they're gonna see that once you start going through these changes, there's gonna
Yeah.
be all these different stages that happen in your life. And crystals is one of them. You'll experience, see, I'm one of those people where once you start becoming open, there's a lot of forces out there that you start to sense and start to sense you back, good and bad.
Yep.
So I needed
Yep.
to form a boundary for myself around me, and I had to have certain things that I know that can assist my spiritual protection and my connection to myself. And that's with using certain metals like copper
Yep.
and certain minerals, everything on the planet is put here by the universe, by God, for specific reasons. Why do you think these huge geode things are burped out by volcanoes? These big amethyst, right? Or these big crystal things, they're burped out by volcanoes. Why? Because the earth is producing things that it needs, that the
Yeah.
sentient life needs on the planet, right? So, and the sun is literally sending information to the earth that fucking forms these things inside volcanoes, right? It's all sentient plasma universe. And we're going to see that even what we're taught in school is completely wrong. Do you realize we're taught in school? Well, let's get into first science, because then forget about the biggest friggin' deceiving thing ever is telling you the food pyramid. That's the biggest
Right.
ever, right? Oh yeah, have 70 grams of sugar in the morning with cereal and orange juice and this and that, right? And then load up on like 12 servings of grains throughout the day and all this it's incredible, right? That it was developed to make people obese and lethargic,
Yep.
and you know, is
Yep.
ridiculous. It's ridiculous. But in science, right, we're taught in school that our sun is a hydrogen gas sphere, but it's really not. It's a plasma sphere, a plasma star. That it's plasma is the fourth stage of matter. It's a higher state of matter, and if you heat gases up, you get eventually, what you get to a certain to a heat, it evolves into plasma, which is like a sentient, very mysterious, not truly understood element of the universe that is literally the Akashic records, right? So 99.99% of the visible universe is plasma. right? It's everywhere. It's interconnecting galaxies. It's interconnecting stars and suns and galaxies. They're all stringing together by plasma, right? 99.99% of the universe is plasma. It's not mostly empty. It's mostly plasma. And it's talked about in all mythologies and all cultures. In Egypt, for example, they have something that's called the boat of millions of years. Now, on a galactic scale, plasma is measured in millions of light years, right? When you see a nebula, it's like 6 million light years of plasma. It's a boat of millions of years, and plasma, it moves like water. Every sun has a river of plasma coming from it, and it makes a confluence of those rivers into one big celestial ocean. And that's talked about in all mythology. We just don't understand it correctly, right? Even like down to you got to give the ferryman a quarter to cross over in your boat over the river Styx, right? It's all that plasma waters, right? And you're leaving Earth into the plasma waters to eventually go back into the sun, into the solar octaves, right? It all has to do with sound and vibration and harmony when the sun is sending its solar wind and plasma out, right? Those electrons make music that the birds repeat, right? So as the solar wind comes in, the magnetosphere absorbs some of those electrons in the magnetotail at night, right? And then the magnetotail lets it out in auroras and all that stuff, right? But those plasma waves coming from the sun that comes in our magnetosphere around Earth, those plasma waves, the electrons within them make what's called an electron-driven chorus. This electron-driven chorus in the plasma waves sound exactly like certain birds, and the birds mimic these an hour before dawn. And this frequency, not only for the birds, because the birds have been proven that the bird song will help open the plant cell's stomata so they can open up and flourish and bloom. But it's not been explored that bird song is being sent originally from the sun. The sun is sending those codes for creation, for sustenance, for evolution, for plants to grow. The sun is sending that light. And as the light comes into the magnetosphere, it makes a chorus, the electron-driven chorus. And it's talked about in all mythologies, the call of the woodpecker of Zeus, right? Of Hera, the woodpecker, the hoopoe bird, the cuckoo bird make very similar sounds to the electron-driven chorus. Starlings, all of these make very similar sounds, and they repeat this. They have magnetite in them, birds. They follow magnetic field lines. So they sense the magnetic field around Earth and the vibration and chorus within it. You know, they have a very interesting tale that goes along with this place, Callanish, right? Callanish is the stone circle of Scotland, very ancient granite stone circle of Scotland, right? The mythology that goes along with this ancient stone circle, and this is a place where auroras hang over it during a certain time of the year. So there's a break in the magnetosphere there, so, right? So it's going to hear the song. Now, there's a myth that goes along with this stone circle of Callanish, which is called the Stonehenge of the North, the crown of the North, right? This
What?
stone circle, right? So in the north, there is a lot of places where auroras come in, right? So when you have this chorus coming in, it sounds like the woodpecker and the cuckoo bird and different birds, right? So there's a myth that goes along with the stone circle that says on Midsummer Night, which is one of the most important nights for the light, right? It's the longest night of the year, that the shining one walks up the avenue of stone, heralded by the cuckoo's call. Now, so many people over the year has been translating this. In my book coming out called The Golden Noose of the Gods, they're going to have the real old origins of this. People are always saying the Shining One or the Anunnaki. Oh, yeah, they were using those terms. But the Shining One is very simply the sun. And when they say the Shining One is walking up the avenue of stones heralded by the cuckoo's call, the light of the sun is coming up the avenue of the stones, heralded by the sound that it makes when it comes in through the magnetosphere, right? By the cuckoo's call. That's advanced knowledge about the sun, our magnetosphere, the plasma chorus that we're only finding out about today by certain instruments. But certain seers and sages and adepts can sense that on a level that we can't imagine. Now, birds, they have magnetite within their brain, some of them. They follow magnetic field lines. If you disrupt that magnetic field signal, they'll fly, they won't fly south for the winter, right? They know when to go north, right? Because our magnetic field is north. Now, I'll blow your minds even more with that. Now,
Oh,
lava stone records this. Lava stone takes snapshots of our magnetic field strength. So does pottery. So when you have ancient pottery in cuneiform, the time that it was fired up, the magnetite in there will take a snapshot of what our magnetic field strength is at the time. So there's certain
oh my
instruments
God.
like magnetometers that can test the pottery, and the filings will go north. You know the filings that you use to show, like it'll point north. So the pottery will tell you what our magnetic field strength was at the time. So will lava stone. So if you go back deep in lava layers, they'll show you a time where our magnetic field was pointing south, right? And they've gone back that far, and it was over 700,000 years ago. And it's happened many times. So we're overdue for it to flip, because every certain hundreds of thousands of years, it flips, right? So, like, our magnetic north right now is where things point when they test. Like pottery, they should be going to the north, like the magnetite and stuff. It should, right? Because our magnetic field, as we don't have pottery over 700,000 years old. But lava stone we have, and it can be tested. They literally take snapshots of our magnetic field, the time it was, because when the lava hits the sea, it cools very rapidly, and it takes the snapshot as it cools of the magnetic field strength, you know, and it's the magnetite and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it's incredible. So I really think that when these so-called solar kings were doing recording stuff in pottery, they were also recording something that has to do with the magnetic field as well, in certain things as well. And I think they probably knew about this. Yeah, really incredible.
Oh, this is so cool because this all ties into what Don has been saying, like what he's been finding, like
Researching for
he,
months.
he's been researching this stuff, and what you just summed up there, like that's exactly what he's finding. This is
Well,
so
we
wild.
have we have some evidence to show you that our magnetic field's going to flip. It's not like it's just pulled out of the air, right? So we have what's called the
Yeah.
South Atlantic anomaly, right? So this South Atlantic anomaly is a region in South America that expands out where the magnetic field strength is weak, and that's like a portal from the sun to earth, literally, because that's a spot where the information and the bridge of light coming right from the sun is getting in through our magnetosphere right in that area. It's very weak. So that area is forming these islands of you could see, like, it's a huge area, the South Atlantic anomaly it's called. I talk about it on my Patreon. You guys can check out my Patreon at patreon.com/the mystical spiral. And for literally
Oh, cool.
$2 a month, you join and you get like groundbreaking information there all week long. It's
I have
really
a
incredible.
Okay. Don says he has a membership. I'm just finding out about this now.
Nice. Yeah. I put stuff there all week long. A lot of people I don't even think check it out, but yeah, there's all inside access to my book, and I put up book recommendations about the work I'm working on. I have groups I put up on there, all different stuff that's up there. I mean,
Oh,
there's thousands of posts now because I've had it for a few years, so there's literally, you could doom scroll through it. You know, there's so much information on there.
oh,
Yeah, I mean,
that is so awesome. I'm
and when I was
I'm
talking
so glad
about,
that
sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I'm just gonna say, like, I'm so glad that you came on today because like
Oh,
you
no
said, I
doubt.
just knew you from Skeptic. I didn't even like I knew, like I knew that you had the crystal skulls and like I watched, but oh my goodness.
Yeah, we do. I see.
You
I
you
do.
really
I do it
have.
copper metalwork too, right? I even come from a long line of blacksmiths. So even the copper harmonizers that we make, they are in the form of the magnetic field around Earth. They're the form of a supernova
Oh,
explosion, right?
one of those.
Yeah, these are very special. And This is even one that's double wrapped, and I have the hydro quartz on top. These are very special.
Oh,
And then
wow.
I do see when you twist the copper, it's more powerful. So like a normal piece of copper, see, this is a twisted copper ring, right? The twisted copper. So when you have a normal piece of copper, there's a positive and negative north and south pole to the piece of copper, right? But when you twist the copper clockwise, it's like wringing out a dirty rag. So all the old dirty electrons get wringed out of the copper, and it just leaves a positive charge within the copper where there's always a constant flow of new electrons coming out of it. You want new electrons flowing. So when you twist it, it spins it so there's a toroidal movement and always a fresh explosion of fresh electrons, right? That's what you want. Twisting it counterclockwise, it actually gives a reverse effect. So you have to have the clockwise twist. And I cut it from the royal cubit measurement, the royal sacred cubit measurement, which is said to vibrate at 144 megahertz, which is a harmonic light speed, right? So you are literally twisting the copper to wring out the dirty electrons. So there's a nice fresh explosion and a positive charge within the copper. And then you make it into a coil or a ring. So you have the constant flow of that energy. So when you wrap a twisted copper coil around a gemstone, right? Like quartz or what have you, you're literally forming a torus movement, a toroidal movement around the quartz, which is squeezing and compressing it and opening up the light within the quartz, the piezoelectricity, right? So I make
Wow.
specific copper jewelry for a reason with the coil twisted around it. Now you'll see other people that make copper jewelry, they make it way more intricate and fancy, some very cool looking, but they have all these coils everywhere clashing against each other and all this intricate that's not good because there's no flow for the energy. All the energy is bashing against each other and you got a chaotic piece, right? It might look cool, but you want somewhere for the energy to flow. Like you want one coil coming down the stone, right? Or if you have a coil bending around it, you want it to make a ring, right? Like if you have something bending like a ring, you want a good flowing coil. Like, let me show you. So this is a gemstone that I just made out of lemon quartz that has the twisted copper around a lemon quartz gemstone. And you want that one
Oh,
coil coming
oh,
around it.
that's cool.
See, it's the twisted copper. I don't know how well you could see it on yours.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
it's
that's
twisted and
perfect.
it's a spiral going. You want that nice flow of the energy. You don't want all these coils clashing against each other, right? And so it's taken me many years to come up with a simple yet very effective, beautiful design. And I have all sorts of gemstones. Like this one's made of opal, and it's with the silver that way, twisted silver. Let me show.
Okay, yep, there you go. Yep. Oh, wow. Oh, that's gorgeous. Oh, I love that.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so you want to do the twisted copper is more powerful. Regular copper, it works too with the coil. They work great because it carries the current of the stone as well. It'll magnify it as well. So
Yeah.
a simple coil is fine as well. And you can do this with electroculture. We do it with crops. So we make you can see on my YouTube, we have electroculture spirals of copper in with the plant. Like you could do urban gardening this way. You could just put a pot with a tomato plant in it and put the copper spiral up next to it, and you'll see remarkable. But you got to twist it clockwise, and they
Yeah.
have what's called the Agena spiral and the Slim Sperling twist. So we have those, and also I tend to like to put pasteurized eggshells crushed up in the soil with it. Now,
Okay.
some farmers like, oh, if that really worked, all farmers would be using it. Yeah, you really think a farmer is going to sit there and crush up thousands and thousands of pasteurized eggshells that they buy or they get from chicken? I don't think so. It's going to be too expensive
Yeah.
and costly. They're not going to do that. They throw the most
Yeah.
inexpensive shit, right? But no,
Yeah.
we use it here. I'm doing it this year. I crush up a lot of pasteurized eggshells. The pasteurized eggs are the best ones, the brown pasteurized ones. and I put it in the soil with the plant, and then with the copper growing, and that's all. I don't use any other fertilizer but the past, because when you have an eggshell, right? Inside the eggshell is all the elements for life to grow and to
Yeah.
sustain, and it's like a little capsule of growth, evolution, creation, sustenance, all that. So when you mix that in with the soil, I mean, what harm can it do? It's better than putting freaking manure in there. People put manure. Why would you want to put waste product? You want to put birth product, you know? You want to put birth product in the soil. You don't want to put waste product. Forget about the manure. You want birth product, birth stuff, birth
That
elements,
makes
excrement.
that that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. Electroculture is what
Wow.
it's called with the copper. With the copper and gardening, it's called electroculture, electroculture, agriculture. And, a lot of gardeners will say it's a myth, but then you start to use it and you'll see the results. Put 5 plants with the electroculture copper and 5 plants without it, and then tell me what happens. And then tell me about the taste between the two. I mean, I got to tell you, what made me start doing this is because I started to I love fruit, right? I love strawberries and I love raspberries. I love peaches. All of a sudden, I started buying organic fruit, so-called organic fruit, and whatever they're spraying on it or whatever, I started having allergic reactions where, like, literally, I'd be 20 minutes or an hour after I eat it, all of a sudden my hands would all of a sudden be on fire, and they would be really red and itchy, and then I would get all these hives everywhere, and it would be crazy. And then I was like twitching, feeling weird. It was like a physical reaction as well, where I'd be in the shower, even my freaking penis went hiding. My penis went inside. I was like, what the hell happened? It was like everything like shriveled and contracted. I was like, yeah, it was like
Wow.
crazy. Yeah, it was like my whole
What
everything just
the
like
hell
was.
are they spraying? Oh my
At
gosh.
first, I thought I was like, am I allergic to peaches now? Because it happened with peaches. But then, like 6 months later, it happened with strawberries. And then just now, most recently, it happened with something. What was the last one it happened with? I forget what it just happened with the other day. It happened again, just lightly the other day with another fruit. So I think
That,
it's what's intuitively it's saying what's sprayed on it. But
yeah.
well, my wife had soaked the fruit too before I ate it, so I don't know. Maybe you got to scrub it. Maybe we got to scrub it and scrub it. But who wants to sit there and buy fruit and
Yeah.
scrub it and shit? It sucks.
It's just easier to grow.
Is it? Yeah, it's so much easier to grow. We grew strawberries this year. I only had one plant of strawberries, but because we wanted to see how it came out, but it was the best strawberries I ever ate in the longest time. They were so
Yeah.
red. Oh my
Yeah.
God. They were so amazing.
Yeah.
I only got to eat one or two
That's
of them. My daughter ate them all.
yeah. That's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
that's been our experience too. And like the part where you mentioned electroculture, both Dawn's and my ears went up because I we have intention, like we're just waiting for some stuff to work out. Like we want to buy a farm. Like we have the site set. And so this is
Yeah. Yeah,
exactly
we'll come
what
live
we
on it,
need.
man. We'll help you. Yeah,
Yeah.
shit. I'll take my family. We'll come help. We'll come help. I would love to have a farm too, man. I would love to. That would be crazy. That's my goal, is to get off the grid and all this.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
do like
That's
once in a while the ground you could just get, to connect everybody. We could do a radio show every once in a while, but yeah, I don't really want to, because we're homeschooling right now, and I hate that even
yeah.
when you homeschool, they're all up in your shit. Like you got to
Yep.
file quarterly work, or they call CPS on you immediately, right? It's like crazy. Child Protective Services is CPS over here.
Yeah.
So if you like, they already
Yeah.
warned me because this is the first year I'm doing it. So they were like, "Yo, if you don't file quarterly things, we'll call CPS on you." And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I
That's
won't be late.
super.
Don't worry about it. I don't want you guys even more in my friggin' ass. It's crazy.
Oh, no, I get it. I went through, like, I didn't really have a choice. Like, and this is another reason why, like, I asked Heidi Pop to come on one of my episodes because she she does alternative schooling, like, and it's amazing. And that's what I wanted to do. Like with my son, I wanted to homeschool him or put him in something alternative, but because of external interference, it wasn't a good scene with his father. And like they had CPS, which is like it's CAS here, Children's Aid Society. They had them on speed dial. So I
Oh
had,
my
at
God,
that point, I had no choice. It was either conform or lose my child. Um,
I get it.
so it's hard, and I get it. And like if there's anything that we can do to support you guys,
Yeah, I mean,
like with your
I
journey or
figure
whatever.
I don't think I'm gonna probably do it for her whole career because eventually she might ask me like, "Daddy, I want to go now," you know. But right now
Yeah,
she's not.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
remember it was a weird thing for me to leave my parents at that age. It was because you know what they do?
yeah,
In my opinion, they're forcing kids to do things that they truly don't understand and comprehend yet. Like when you could
yeah,
force a kid to read and write and do math before they truly understand it. You can, but it stresses
yeah,
them out. It stresses them out,
yeah,
and it stifles their creativity, right? So like
yes,
if you
yes,
just let a kid naturally happen, they'll naturally start reading. They'll naturally
yep,
start to without stressing them out that you got to do this year, or you're gonna have to repeat, or
yep.
like if like it's so stressful for certain kids and kids, you
Oh
know,
yeah,
no one people teach things, but they never teach you how to deal with anxiety. They never teach you how to deal with stress. They never teach you how to deal with things that are important, right? That's really gonna help you.
exactly,
All they do
exactly.
is program you how
Yep,
to be a servant. The bell rings, close the book. It's time to work on another project. And then it's like the bell ring.
yep,
That's come from warehouse type programming. Like the bell ring,
yes,
this time for lunch, the bell ring. They're like friggin' drill it in. Like I don't want my daughter to go through that
yep,
and that be programmed in her, right? And it's the only good thing about school is the socializing. That's really good for kids because
yes,
it's good to be away from your
yes,
parents. You can explore who
yeah,
you really are. Sometimes you can't do that in front of your parents. But the thing is,
yeah,
I've made it where I've made it so I have a relationship with my daughter where she could be herself around me because you don't know me personally, but literally there's nothing that I haven't pretty much been through. I've been through everything from being in group homes, drug addiction, homeless, having money, not having money, losing my mom, being almost beat to death, being almost raped. I had to fight off an attacker trying to rape me. Things like all these things that have happened in my life. There's nothing my daughter can do that's going to make me judge her or
yeah,
make her feel weird or whatever. So we have like a really special relationship. And I never had that because like how I grew up, I just turned 46 2 days ago, July 12th, right? So like my parents, like when I grew up, I grew up like in the early 80s, mid 80s, like parents from that generation, most of them didn't tell you shit. They kept everything from you.
yep,
And some of it's good to keep from you. There's certain things you're not supposed to tell kids, of course. But
yes,
like
yes.
when it comes to certain like personality trait, like my parents never showed me who they really were, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like they kept everything very, you never really knew.
Yep,
And they lied to you a lot.
yeah.
Like you don't really know who they are. Like who they are when they're around their friend. Like I remember when I went to work with my dad for a little while and I heard him talking with the first time ever I heard him talking with the guys down the hallway where he didn't know I was around. And I heard him like, motherfucker, this and this. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy, like that's my dad? Like, like you start to see, like I didn't like he was like a regular guy cursing with the dudes in the friggin' lunchroom. And I couldn't
Yeah,
believe it. It like blew my mind. Right. And like just things like that. My daughter sees who I am. I might have to hide
yes,
certain things,
yes,
information, but she know like so that's things that I think that's very good for parents. Like it's not don't be afraid to
yes,
show your kids who you are. They'll love you
yeah.
for who you are. They'll resent you for not showing them.
Oh,
Like
oh,
Jesus
exactly,
Christ. I
exactly.
thought like, yeah, like that's the one thing that my mom started to do as I got older, just before she died. Like the last maybe like 15 years before she died, she, like because I think it was because I went through such horrific shit. that she felt like she could tell me stuff about herself there because it wasn't even a fraction of as bad as what I went through. Right. So my mom started to open up to me a little bit about who she was and her because like I think she felt comfortable because like she realized, oh my God, like,
Mhm.
you know, I know you're everything. Oh my God, like what you've been through. So like, you know, my mom's like, I got to open up with her, but some people just are not meant to do that with their kids because they were programmed and they're never gonna be humbled, right? You have to be humbled usually for that to go through you. And I went through like years of martial arts. I even competed in kickboxing, and I've been humbled spiritually and physically by people, right? Where you think you're a tough guy until a scrawny little dude friggin' manhandles you, and then you walk out of the day like thinking like your whole world is rocked, right? So yeah, I've been humbled in ways that has changed my personality and how I treat people and talk to people. And unfortunately, some people never go through that. Like my dad, you know, he's still alive, but he's in his 80s, but he's never been humbled ever,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So I've
Yeah.
been humbled in
Yeah.
ways that he can't imagine, and it creates different men. Everybody is on a different path in life. And
Yep.
and you got to make a choice. You can be who you are and be a hero, or you could be weak and stay closed and lie to everybody your whole life. You know? So, and
I
money
that. Yeah.
money doesn't make a man, right? Money doesn't make a man,
Oh,
and being able to punch somebody in the face doesn't make a man. Being tough doesn't make a man, and money doesn't make a man. What makes a man is, like how you carry yourself and how you react to your mistakes and how you live and how you carry yourself, and the vibration that's coming out of you. That's what makes a man. You can thrive and not have money. What's rich, what's rich is how other people see you too. Like how, you know, like how do your children look at you, right? Do they truly really respect you, or do they respect you because they want money from you and your inheritance, right? So there's different things that some people they only act like they love somebody because they want something from them, right? Like
yes. Yes.
thank God I didn't have a lot of money growing because like every woman I've ever been with or girl when I was younger, they've always been with me because I was like a cool dude. It's not because I had a really fast car or I had money or anything. I've always been broke. I've always had nothing. Right. So like that's the true thing. If like a woman's gonna be with you and you're broke, like come on. It's like a real thing. Like how many rich people like they bought their wives in many ways. Even if they didn't physically say, "Hey, I'm buying you," they bought them, right? They bought them in many ways because of their assets. That's what attracted them to them, right?
Yeah.
And you know, to me, it's got to have that electricity and magnetism between souls, right? It doesn't really have to do with like like you're the hottest girl in the world, or that you're like it doesn't really have to do with that. It depends the electricity between you two, right? The magnetism between you two. I mean, it is good to look at somebody beautiful. That's of course, that's how we are as humans, but it's not really everything because that fades. It doesn't stay. You don't always stay young and vibrant. We all fade. We all get older. So if you don't
Yep.
have the vibration with the person, right, that's never going to change. Like when you have that vibration and electricity with someone, when you see them, when you guys get to 70-year-old, you're still going to see them as that first person you met. That's still that frequency is still going to be there because that love, like I saw that with my grandparents. Like my grandparents, they were in love together. Like when one died, the other one just did stopped eating and withered away, like literally didn't want to live, just laid there on her bed when my grandfather died. And then I've seen like other people in my family, I'm not going to say who, but like the day they die, they're already moved on, right? And you could
Yeah.
tell that it was not love. It was love. They were together because it was like an agreement. You had kids together, and it was like some sort of agreement that. So
Yeah.
it's dangerous. It's dangerous because like you never know how kids are affected by that. And I mean,
Oh. Oh.
I know for me,
Yeah.
losing like a male role model was the most devastating thing for me ever, and for a young boy growing up. Like when
Mhm.
that image gets shattered, it's very hard to recover from that. And it took years for me. I rebelled a lot. as a teenager after that. Like from like 13, 14, it took me a while into my early 20s where I could like really start to like, I'm like, what am I doing here? I'm gonna die. So but and all I was doing was just I was punishing myself because I was angry about what somebody else freaking did that I loved.
Oh wow, you just
Imagine that, right?
hit
At 13 years
the nail
old,
on the
at
head.
13 years old,
Wow.
I'm not gonna say any of my family personal thing. I'm gonna keep it like where I don't have to say too much. But at 13 years old, I went through something that hurt me so bad that I literally punished myself for years because of what somebody I loved did. And I was so ashamed for them that I punished myself because they didn't punish themselves, because they weren't owning up to their mistake. So I literally was punishing myself because of it. And it took me years to figure it out. I figured I want to cry right now. It took me years to figure it out. I had people, I was in juvenile detention. I had counselors talking to me. I was in group homes because of it. I was in county jail because of it as a young kid, rehabs as a young kid. It was my own shit, but I was punishing myself for many years, and you don't realize that even the counselors at the time, they start asking you like, what's the reason why you came from a good home, blah, blah, blah. What you had to have been physically, like sexually abused or something, but it's really not that. A lot of times we punish ourselves, for mistakes other people that we love make. And that's so true. And I took me, man, decades to figure it really out, you know, and like working with crystals and copper, that is something that helps you tap into emotions, because and this is not woo woo, but they're put here. All minerals, all items in nature are put here for everyone to communicate with. And crystals absorb light information that's coming from the sun, that's coming in, and they broadcast that. And we're meant to work with the light, right? We're made of the same compositions, as a freaking supernova explosion. We have all that stuff inside of us as well, right? So we're made out of all the same elements, and we're all in communion with each other. And the crystals are absorbing the information that's coming from stars, suns, and they have a certain vibration about them that we're supposed to use. We're supposed to communicate with. And it's taken me a long time to really figure that out. But yeah, I want to thank you for having me on too. It's really been a pleasure. It was
Oh my
therapeutic.
goodness.
It was
Oh,
therapeutic for me today as well. Both of us.
I want to I especially want to thank you for sharing that last bit, because I felt you, and you, by sharing that, I'm gonna try not to cry here now. My turn. You helped me figure something out about my own son. And so now I have some questions. The other piece is you gave me some hope, because he loves crystals. He loves rocks. He always has. That's one of the things that I did as a single mom. I took him. So we actually grew up in a place, like I grew up, and then I brought my son back home. It was on the Canadian Shield. There's a lot of granite there, and we were so close to the gem and mineral capital of Canada. So all of this is just really resonating,
Wow.
and just
Yeah,
placement
yeah,
and
yeah.
things. And
People don't realize that Gettysburg, where the war was, where a
yeah,
lot of people have ghost encounters there. It doesn't
yeah.
surprise me that things get repeated there because a lot of energy was spent there, and the bedrock is lined with black granite. So it's literally like recording all the emotion and pain that was, and repeating and repeating. It's like,
Oh
and
my
that's
God.
not woo woo. That's scientific. I mean, the quartz and the
Oh,
magnetite within the granite is literally absorbing the energies, right? And then
God. You
as
just
the water and whatever fault lines and all that stuff start to happen, and it starts to rub together the quartz within the granite, it compresses and squeezes together, and the cold plasma light comes out of the granite and repeats the information that's absorbed in it.
Oh my God. That's
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It's like literally time traveling to another spot. It's recording ancient memory within the courts, right? So yeah, so a lot of times people will walk on Gettysburg and they'll see like a loop of something transpiring. Like, oh, like somebody walking through the woods and in and out on a continuous loop real quick. And yeah, it's not surprising. It's the granite.
You just you just helped me answer something too. My family had been on that granite base for years, and it was also the
Whoa.
45th parallel, which is exactly between the North Pole and the equator. Ottawa is also on the same, like you're I'm smelling some rabbit holes here, but I'm trying not to go down them. But you just answered some questions right now, Don. And my son and I are living on the same parallel as Stonehenge, which you mentioned earlier. So this is a whole other, like, I
Well,
have
yeah,
more
what's interesting
questions, which
too about
I'm not
parallels
even going to
is
get
like
into.
in the Book of Enoch, they have the so-called fallen angels that come down on Mount Hermon, and it's on the 33rd parallel. Now,
Oh my God.
where I had my really incredible experience where I had missing time and everything. It was like a spiritual experience I had in a park called the Cesar Chavez Park in Long Beach, California. This happened to me when I was living in California in like 2002. Long Beach, California, and the park that I was in at the time, I didn't know it at the time it happened, is on the 33rd parallel, but on the other side. Like Lebanon and Mount Hermon, where the fallen angels came down,
Yeah.
the 33rd parallel, that's on in Mount Hermon in Lebanon. But then if you go on the other side in Long Beach, California, the 33rd parallel runs right through the Cesar Chavez Park right there in Long Beach, California, where I was. So, and that park is made in like spiral Fibonacci form, all the stuff in the park. It's like crazy.
My goodness. My goodness.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I won't I think we should probably stop there for
Oh
now.
yeah, we could
If
probably do
you'd
like a
like to
7 hour show.
Oh my God, yeah, right? I seriously cannot thank you enough. So if you want to tell everybody like where they can find you, more details about your book, if you want, everything that you want to share, so that like you can keep getting the word out. Like, thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you. I appreciate it. Basically, it's the mystical spiral across the board. So I have a Patreon, patreon.com/the mystical spiral. I have my own store, themysticalspiralstore.com. I also have a free information website, themysticalspiral.com. And I also have a couple of YouTubes, Exploring the Ka with Rock Castaldo. That's one of them. And then I have one called The Mystical Spiral. That's just my copper and gemstones. And I just started a combat sports channel as well, but that's not for this channel, I guess. But
Nice, nice.
and then what else do I have? Yeah, and I have my on my YouTube on Exploring the Ka, I have my Space Border podcast that I've been doing. So you guys can check that out.
Beautiful.
You can find everything at
Perfect.
themysticalspiral.com basically.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you
Much.
again. And I just want to thank the viewers and listeners again for tuning in. And I'm just going to throw it out there. If there's any questions that you have that you want me to ask, if I haven't been asking the question that you've been itching to hear, leave me comments. I'm on this journey with everybody else. We're all in this together, and I'm happy to ask questions and share knowledge. So thank you again, guys. I love you so much. We'll catch you on the next episode.